Welcome to selfdiscoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of our Gifted Children right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest today, who is also a contributor to our Forgotten Children book series, which we will be talking about today, is Buddy Thornton. He is an author, he's a publisher, he's an advocate for children, and he's done quite a bit in his life, and this is the reason why he is a part of the book. He is a Vietnam-era veteran. He served as a hospital corpsman in the U.S. Navy. He earned his BS in Allied Health Services, and he is a certified education in mediation and paralegal studies, and he has BCT medications plus. In other words, this guy's done a lot. I'm not going to read it all here, but what we are going to be talking about today is his writing. 150 books there, ghostwriting, writing for others. Also the absolute passion and conviction over children and parenting, and the whole parenting program that he has got that we're going to be talking about today on helping parents navigate parenting. Everybody thinks that the moment you have a child that you know what to do, and Dr. Seuss isn't always the one that we need to guide us along the way. There are other platforms that we need to know, and this is why I invited him to be a part of our Forgotten Children series, which is an anthology on what we need to do better about our children, what needs to change, because we are leaving our children behind on so many levels. And a lot of it is societal. It's the way we've placed importance on the wrong things in life, and how we need to really invest in our children and their future by listening to them, supporting them, and guiding them through their life. And this is something that he's done as a parent himself, a grandparent, and also as a parent advocate. So welcome to the show, buddy.
I am really thrilled to be here, Sarah. And it's true. Being a parent, first and foremost, there really is no accurate template.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that anybody should ever think that we have standardized children, and
No.
so we should not have standardized parenting. I mean, that's just the facts.
Yeah, there's the basic common denominators, right? You know, the instinctuals or the things that you need to look out for, and the go-tos that you need to know. Those are the fundamentals. But I think an awful lot to do with parenting is being in tune with your child, really paying attention to your child, because before they can speak, they're speaking volumes, aren't they?
The number one thing you have to realize is that, we were children once. And almost
Yes.
every adult,
Believe it or not.
yeah, believe it or not, every adult seems to forget that, when their parents were putting their thumb down on them, they were like deciding how to rebel, or whether they
Yeah.
should rebel, or how do I get where I want to get without making mom and dad mad. And that's a common denominator that cuts across every generation for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Aristotle wrote a very interesting piece about the teens and the young adults in his society 2,300 years ago. And when you take his name off of that plate and you read it, you think you're actually thinking about Detroit or Toronto or somewhere right now today. It is so exactly the same. How men are aggressive, and they defend themselves, and they always think they're arrogant and right, and they don't want other people to tell them what to do. They want to do what they want to do. And I'm like, wow, it's amazing that Aristotle wrote that so many years ago, and it still fits.
And it's a part of that exploration of becoming an adult. The sad thing is that those are the people that they drew in to go to war, because they would fight for this, and the warriors at that point. They're going to fight for injustice, or they're going to fight in that war, or they're fighting the establishment, or they're fighting for their role and part in life. It kind of just seems to be hormonally kind of that age and what comes along with it. But again, I think if we've prepared them better as younger children with the moral compass. And I don't mean religion moral, I mean just the basic human kindness, the human dignity, the human respect for themselves and for those around them, showing kindness and consideration and respect and value for life and value for what they've got in life, gratitude, learning that beautiful word and exactly what it means to be grateful for what you do have and not always feeling lack because somebody else has got that iPhone that you want. And I think if we could teach our children that right from the word go, they would navigate through those teen years, where the rebellious comes out a hell of a lot better.
I think the most important thing that people need to realize is that in the modern era, parents have become so focused on the external that they forget to look inside the house.
Mm-hmm.
The average parent only spends about 37 minutes a day with each teen child. If you really think about 24-hour clock and 37 minutes,
Yes.
how much wisdom can you impart in 37 minutes? And how much of that 37 minutes is actually the teen talking to the parent?
Yeah.
It's in my books, and I've written multiple books in my Slippery Slope series, and the most important thing is that I teach co-creation. We are not supposed to demand or expect from our children. What we're supposed to do is we're supposed to determine what they see. They have a goal in life, and what are their aspirations, and how can we help nudge them along that path, and allow them to self-create, self-actualize, and eventually transcend into exactly what they should be as adults.
Yeah.
And I've been working with parents for 13 years now consistently since I retired from my athletic career. And the analytics show that 90% of the time when a teen is a quote unquote troubled teen, 90% of the time it's because the parents have missed the mark. It isn't about the teen missing the mark. A teen at the age of 12 or 13 develops abstract thinking, and then they start saying, who am I? Where are my friends? Who should be my friends? And what do I want to be when I finally grow up? Well, I don't know. I'm almost 70, and I sometimes think I haven't grown up. But at the end of the day, shouldn't we be co-creating and guiding instead of controlling?
100%. Let's stick on that one for the moment, because I do believe everything has become about control. We've got school is about control. It's about conform, fit into this box, control of the student and what they can say and what they can't say. It's not about the exploration of what the child is learning and what it means to them and what they can do with it. Everything is that control. Religion is a control. Government establishment, everything is about control. Where do we teach them to find control in their own selves instead of being controlled by everyone else? We're not teaching them how to listen in. We're not teaching them how to navigate their own inner intellect, their own wisdom, their own gut instincts. We're busy dictating them all the time. You should, you've got to, you're only worth something if you do this, if you've got that degree, and if you're making that money, and if you're in this crowd. And we've put so much importance on all of that they are completely lost from the inside. And after all, life is an inside out job, and we need to teach them how to connect with that inside and listen and how it works on the outside.
Well, in my books, I teach the 4 pillars, and the 4 pillars are my life, and my life is really all about understanding yourself. And it's about learning locus of control, and it's about learning how to build self expectations based on what you love, what you're passionate about. And the second one is how to develop a voice, how to actually talk to people, how to present yourself to people, because your voice is not all verbal, it's more nonverbal than verbal. So how do you project yourself to the world? And then, my third pillar is how to really see what you're passionate about. Is it a passion because you want to fit in, or is it a passion that you would cling to if someone was trying to take everything else from you?
Yeah.
And then I also teach how to make proper choices. And my entire series after book 4 is about making choices.
And listening, the choice isn't from the exterior, but from the interior of listening within. When you've learned to connect with your inside, your gut, your compass, right? Your guidance system. You'll know whether that may have all the tinsels on the spotlights, but no, no, there's something that says I shouldn't go down that road, right? And I'm going to take a different path, and to trust those instincts. And not, oh, come on, come along, it's fun, come and let's do it. No, no, it's not for me. To learn to navigate from the inside out and not have the outside influence pull you along a path that's going to perhaps tear you to pieces.
Well, my first book was on ethics and my second book was on morals. And what a lot of people don't understand is that morals are not connected to external sources.
Mm-hmm.
Morals are all internally driven.
Yeah.
The origin of human morals is self-interest.
Mm-hmm.
Consider this point. In every culture across the globe, there is some version of the golden rule. Do unto others as they would do unto you. But why does that become important? It becomes important because in early human days, if you didn't play nice with everybody else, they would ostracize you. And as anyone knows, if you didn't have the safety of the group, you actually were very easy to be predated.
Yes.
And your life expectancy was extremely short.
Yeah.
So morality developed along those lines of self-interest. What is going to be the thing I can do that will make me extend my lifetime as long as I possibly can? And most behaviorists agree it's just really working good in the pack. Collaboration, cooperation, always having what we call altruistic reciprocity. You're going to do what's right for somebody else in hopes that they're going to do right to you. There's no guarantee they will, but if you don't at least extend that peace offering, do you really expect you'll ever get one back? That's the question.
Yeah. Yeah, I drew the analogy of, we're all in discovery of what our instrument is, and then to learn how to play that instrument. And yes, we can play as a soloist, but when we come together in an orchestra, each one of us playing in our own strength, but harmoniously, we then transcend and ascend that music to a higher level for one and all. And I think that's the importance of it, is be the most you can be for yourself, first and foremost, because, let your cup runneth over, but you've got to fortify your cup. But the sharing of your own personal abundance is then in the community strength. And that strength and that community is only as strong as your own individual strength.
We celebrate the individual, we celebrate the champion, we celebrate those people who can really compete on a high level. But at the end of the day, society is about being part of an ensemble.
Yes.
If we
the village.
If we can't function well within the village, the saying that it takes a village to raise a child is actually incorrect. It takes a village to be a village. That's what it means.
Yes.
A child in most of the indigenous cultures, they believe that a child is born completely self-actualized. They have everything they need. All they have to be is nurtured into adulthood.
Yeah.
And most other cultures have lost that belief.
Oh, 100% lost it completely, out the door, gone.
Right. And so when you're looking at that, if a child is self-actualized and then they start going down the wrong path, is it really on the child or is it on the village?
Yeah.
And I firmly believe that it's really on the village. You should always look at what you did to contribute to the problem before you blame, shame, or judge someone else.
Yeah.
If you get to the point where they just made a bad choice, then correct the choice. Don't throw the child out.
Exactly. Yes, right, exactly. But there's another thing which we do have in the book. We have advocates of autistic children, and we have I can't remember, it's disruptive mood behavior. There are a lot of children being born with complications, neurological complications. And that doesn't mean they're unworthy. It doesn't mean they're unintelligent. Doesn't mean that they can't contribute. What it does mean is that we need to guide them, nurture them, and be there for them on a different level. And we can't just kind of paint every child with the same brush. And that if a child is in this disruptive mood and they're playing up, it's not something they're just being a brat on. Unfortunately, it's something that's tormenting them in their own mind, that this is the only reaction that they know. And I think we need more education in that village of life, of that one size doesn't fit all, and that there are different ways of learning. There are different ways of contributing, and that we need to be more nurturing and more understanding and more aware. That's the reason for the book, is the awareness of the problems and the issues out there, so that we can start correcting them in our own villages, right? Because most of the time people just aren't aware of what people are up against. So the village also needs to be understanding of the differences.
Oh,
And
absolutely. It's when I look in the parenting space, the one thing that most people miss, and a lot of people focus on in the modern era, is that they start to think of children as being a byproduct of marriage or a byproduct of being in love. They start looking at children as being a distraction to their career or what they're trying to do. When in reality, if you decide to become a parent, or if it happens to you organically and you weren't actually making that choice, you're signing up for something that means that they become the purpose.
yes,
They're no longer a distraction. They're no longer, someone that's going to just bother you when you're trying to be busy doing something else. We sign up for that, and we sign up for that as a species. We don't sign up for it one at a time. Now, there are people who, perhaps society would deem should never have been parents, and we won't judge that or blame that or shame that. What we will say is that, were they misguided? Has the modern world failed them as people, that they were not good parents?
They were caught up in their own patterns, right? And just repeating patterns. And until you break that pattern and programming, that's all they know.
Exactly. And the other thing is that when a parent tells me that, it's very difficult for them to find time for a child, I flip that around. I'm a great grandfather. And, with 4 generations that I've existed through, the first thing out of my mouth is always, if you can't make time for the child that you're responsible for, then how can you even think that you should be making time for other responsibilities? Because what is more needy in your responsibility tree than the child who needs you 24/7?
Yes. And, for me, all my children were ordered, so to speak. I decided to have them, that sort of choice. And I was, for most part, a stay-at-home mum, which is a luxury these days. And I was the neighborhood mum. So it was the house that the other kids came to or came to stay with, when things were going wrong at home. And for me, being a mother was, to me, a career choice. That this was my career, to be a mother, and to immerse myself into it. Did I do it right? I did it to the best of my abilities for whom I was at that time, with what I knew, because I was brought up in England. My brother and sister were sent off to boarding school at 5 and 6. I was sent off at 8. Due to asthma, I was sent later. And that was very much kind of, have the kids send them off. So I kind of wanted to bring my kids up differently, but I still made mistakes. I was still navigating a new path because I wanted to do it differently. And we've got to also look at parents and not blame or shame them if they're trying to do something different or if they get stuck, but step in and show some support, show some care, because sometimes they are repeating patterns. Sometimes they're trying to change patterns and then navigating through the dark. And this is where we need to get up there and be there for each other, not chastise them, not tell them they're doing something wrong, but just offering them some solutions and alternatives that they could try for themselves to see if it works. Because if you chastise a parent, they're going to shut down. It's going to be even worse. If you're there saying, I know you're going through a difficult time, let's be the wind beneath your wings and help lift you up. That's what a village is meant to do. That's what makes a village strong.
Absolutely. What's really interesting to me is the parent who always worries about being a perfectionist.
Yes.
In my world, I don't want to teach my children that the world is easy and the world is perfect. What I want to do is I want to show them that I'm going to get out on the edge of the envelope and I'm going to take chances. And that means occasionally I'm going to fall flat on my face.
Exactly.
And when I do, I'm going to demonstrate to them a powerful role model is demonstrating how to get up from failure and turn it into success.
Yes.
When a child can see that and they can go, oh yeah, you know what? My dad was doing this. And whoa, wow, did that not work? But look at him now. He's fine and everything's good. That's a much greater lesson than just going through life and going, oh yeah, I never saw my parents argue. I never saw a rude moment. I never heard any bad language. you know what? When you step outside your front door, you have no way to control what happens. So
Yeah.
does that mean that you should just carte blanche, throw all the cautions to the wind? No, of course not. But instead of isolating your children and demanding that there never be anything negative in their world,
Yeah.
you need to expose them to the negativity and then teach them why it's negative and how to avoid it in the future.
Oh, how to come out of it. I
Yeah.
mean, um, the thing is, they sense things. They don't know what's going on, but they know something is going on. And immediately they're going to take it on, it's their fault. They must have done something wrong. So when you can sit your child down and explain the difficulties that you're going through, and that it's got nothing to do with them, it's not their fault, it's just mummy and daddy or mummy or whatever going through something right now. A child learns compassion, a little understanding. They may not understand it all, but it also is that release that it's not their fault. They don't need to take it on. And you'd be surprised of how a child, in their beautiful, infinite divine wisdom, can come up with a solution or come up with the right words at the right time. We don't give them credit. We think that, oh, they're young, they don't know anything. They intuitively know so much. And if we would just get off our high horse and listen to them, you would hear the profoundness that comes out of them.
Well, there's two levels of expectations that children face. They have the self expectation of what they want and how and what they want to try to do and what they want to grow into. And then there's that other expectation tree that's being thrust upon them by teachers and society and parents. And those are the expectations that they fear not living up to.
Yes.
But, like here in the States, they have, the standardized education and everyone has to get to a certain point and a certain level. And a good friend of mine, Dr. Larry Davis, says, we have no standardized children. We have no standardized families. We have no standard anywhere else except in education. And why is that? And isn't that indicative that it's obviously a failure?
Exactly.
When we
Yes.
try to use standardized anything to do anything, we only get standardized, mundane, average, blah results.
We've got
You can't,
standardized birthing now,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
I always tell everybody, look, the top 20%, the superstars, they're going to make it on their own. You don't even have to really teach them anything. Just expose them to the material and they'll learn on their own because
Yeah.
they're so far ahead of the teachers already that it's
Yeah.
not going to matter.
And they're driven. Mm-hmm.
It's the center 60% that the teachers can really reach. And the bottom 20%, regardless of whether it's behavior or some faulty environment or whatever, the bottom 20% are the ones that are inevitably going to become society's anchor. And we're going to have to drag them along with us regardless. My job as a parenting coach and as an educator is to make sure that we focus on that bottom 20% to at least lift them up and give them opportunity to join that middle 60% so that we reduce the drag on society. Anytime a government or people tend to take money away from an educational system, what they're doing is they're dooming or guaranteeing that there's going to be another class of people who are going to have to be on the public dole. And they complain about the taxes and they complain about all the services. But by making the decisions they make to take money out of education, they're literally creating the problem themselves. So
yeah, I mean, one of the first things that you're going to see on the Forgotten Children invite there is that we need to invest in our children. And, we're not. And we're shortcutting. We're not investing money. We're not investing time. We're not investing possibilities. We're dictating, we're controlling, and we're denying. And what do we end up with? A dysfunctional adult society. We have a broken adult society. It's extremely evident. I have been doing these shows for 11 and a half years. I've been doing 3,000 shows, and I can tell you the amount of shows of people that in their 40s, 50s, and 60s have to find themselves on who they really are and let that inner child out. That child that wanted to be this and was told they couldn't be that, or the child that was abused and was just looking for love in all the wrong places. And the journey to that self-actualization of who they are now and embracing it, coming later in life. Why are we doing that? Why has everybody got to discover themselves later in life? Why can't we help them discover who they are as children? So they can be beautiful, functioning, gorgeous souls as adults.
absolutely. in my parenting books, which are books 3 and 4 in my series, I say that a parent's only job is to create a fully functional adult.
Mhm.
How you want to define fully functional to me means that they are actually well adjusted and able to play nice in the sandbox.
Yes,
It doesn't
yes.
matter if they become a neurosurgeon or if they become a garbage collector.
It doesn't matter.
As long as they're happy and they are well adjusted and they know how to treat other people properly, that is the only indication that a parent actually did their job right. You know,
Yes,
if we have untold expectations on our children and our grandchildren, what we're doing is we're telling them, if you don't meet this standard, I don't think you're good enough.
exactly.
David Hume, hundreds of years ago, compared being with doing.
Yeah.
The modern society is a doing society.
Yes.
Do this, do that. If you don't do this, you didn't measure up. If you don't do that, you didn't measure up. David Hume said it best. He said, there is value in simply being. The fact that you were born and you're a human and you're here means you have value. It's up to society to give you enough dignity and room to grow into that value. So
Yeah.
where did we lose that message? Between 250 years ago and now, we lost that message. And it needs to be brought out, and that's why I write my books.
Right. 100%. Totally and utterly agree with you. It is about beingness. It is about being enough. Again, draw the analogy. When you walk into a big corporation and you're taking that elevator up to that CEO's floor, if the place is dirty or tardy, your impression of that CEO has changed. The janitor has set the stage. The cleanliness of that place has set the stage of how you are ready to receive that CEO. Yet we place so much importance on the CEO and not enough gratification on the janitor. As you said, it doesn't matter if you're a janitor, a dust person, or the triangle in the orchestra. Everybody is important. Some people have more expectation put upon them because they have more abilities. And that doesn't mean they're any more than you. They just have more responsibility for what they're doing. And if we could look at everybody as having a value, everybody, I say we're all paying rent here on this earth. We've all got to contribute, right? And human beings can be the worst species on this planet, the utter scum, the way we treat each other. Yet we have the capacity to be the most enlightened and divine and beautiful people when we decide to step into heart, when we decide to step into kindness and gratitude and love and come from that space. And the possibilities and the creativity that comes from that space is always so much more beneficial than it comes from the other space. But that is about choice. And there's some children that are never given that choice because they're born to that darkness. They're born to that dysfunction. They're born into that society that has already separated them by the economics of their family or by their
Yeah.
disability, right? I have
Yeah.
a grandson with Down syndrome. In our family, he is just another grandson. And we know that he has certain challenges, and he's going to grow differently than his brother, but we just look at him as the beautiful child that he is, and we will navigate his journey along with him, right? And
Oh
not
yeah.
separate. And that's the thing, we like to separate people and put them on different class levels and different economic levels and different levels of importance. That's where it's all going wrong.
Yeah. I don't share a whole lot about my personal family, but my 43-year-old son is developmentally delayed. He's like a 12-year-old,
Mhm,
but he has not missed a day of work since he was
mhm.
18. He's 43 years old now.
Right.
Yes, does he ask for affirmation a lot of times? If you ask him to do something new, is he confused for a little bit?
Yeah,
Yes, of course, because he's developmentally delayed.
you're right.
But at the end of the day, he was my cross to bear. God said, you need a challenge in your life, and I'm going to give you this challenge, and how you function with this challenge will mean more to me than everything else you ever achieve in your life.
Yes, yes.
And so, when I fast forward to today, and I have a great grandson who's 7, who is pretty high on the autistic scale, and he has his own set of challenges, and we work with him, and I compare the two. I'm like, the things that I did with my son prepared me to help my granddaughter
Right.
with her child. And the perspective is that give them room to grow and allow them to grow into that space.
Yes.
Like, if you have unrealistic expectations
Mm-hmm.
of them, they're never going to succeed. So why would you put that anchor around them, and obviously set yourself up to feel like you failed them as well?
Yeah.
You know, everything is very cyclical. You
Mm.
know, we make choices, and once we see the choices manifest, what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to say, I'm never going to change the goal, but I'm going to change how I want to get there. So
Right.
if a choice doesn't work, it didn't fail. It just got you to a place where you need to make another choice. Keep making more choices. Keep pivoting until you climb that tree, get to the top. And if
Mm-hmm.
the top is a lot lower for one person than another, who cares?
Who cares? The amount of people I've interviewed that were big CEOs, you know, big in their industry of what they were doing, and they realized that they were a slave to that industry. They were slave to making that money, slave to that maintaining that importance. The amount of hours that they had to put in, the amount of self-destruction that came about from it. And then it took the nudge, nudge, wink, wink, which they didn't pay attention to, and then the cosmic two by four, generally in health or loss or something that flattened them. And it's in the rising from those ashes that they stepped into who they really are, what they really want to do, and realize that the real abundance and enrichment in life is in living a true life in your meaningful purpose. And they all feel a hell of a lot richer today, not making the same money, a hell of a lot richer in who they are and what they're doing. And they've taken the same skills that they had and everything else and applied it to this new platform. So again, it's part of life's journey. We're going to sometimes take a wrong road. But imagine if we got behind our children and the roads that they took that were the cul-de-sacs or didn't go anywhere, or they had to redirect from, were not as catastrophic or as not as time consuming, like taking years from their life, not as so cosmic two by four-ish, that they actually can go, you know what, this doesn't feel right. I need to redirect and not wait for that cosmic two by four to flatten them. They would go, nothing is a mistake, nothing is a failure. Because for me, failure is when you refuse to get back up and refuse to try again. I've had many redirects, many times on my backside. And I may have had my tears and may have had my frustration, but it's get back up. What's next?
Yep,
What's next? What am I meant to do now? And just being
absolutely.
open and aware to what, because there is always something waiting for you. And if we can teach our kids how to get back up, okay, that didn't work. What did you learn from it? Let's put that in our backpack of knowledge. What's next? We've lost our wondrous
Yep.
ability, and we need to keep our children's wondrous ability always open.
Well, I look at life from two different vectors. Number one is I always believe that life is like a big tree. Everyone starts in the trunk. We all haven't, not necessarily where on the trunk. Some people start in the ground below the trunk, but it's once you get on that trunk and you're climbing into the tree of life and you get to that decision point, now you got to decide, how am I going to get to the top of this tree? If you think about a huge, huge oak tree, there are so many thousands of ways to get to the top of the tree. And you can go to the left, to the right, you can go straight up the middle. It doesn't matter how you get there. And some people benefit from the longer journey by going
Yes.
around and going out and learning and seeing and manifesting, and maybe getting into a dead end and going, oh, I got to back up and go up that branch instead. That's all about life. It's about
Yes.
understanding that
Gathering skills and tools and knowledge. Yes.
it took me until I was in my 60s to realize that I actually could write at a level that people would actually appreciate and enjoy reading.
Hmm.
But it wasn't because I wasn't a good writer. I've been a speaker since I was a teen, and I loved getting in front of people and speaking. But sometimes I felt like I was speaking and people were tuning me out because I didn't understand life. I didn't
Mm.
understand what it takes. And at some point, when I looked inward and I said, you know what, the message is wrong. Stop chasing goals, stop chasing money, stop chasing this, stop chasing that. Start helping people. You know,
Yes.
my email, Buddy PSCA Pro, is because I am branded as Buddy the Positive Social Change Agent. And everything I do and all the enjoyment I get out of life is seeing other people succeed.
Hmm.
My biggest quote is, if I'm on the pedestal, I appreciate your applause. But when I'm not on the pedestal, I guarantee you I'm going to applaud who is.
Yes.
We
Yes.
have to live in a world where competition takes a back seat to celebration. We have to have competition. Stress and competition allows us to evolve.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, you're only going to reach a certain level. And when you reach your pinnacle, and it's your pinnacle, not somebody else's,
Yeah.
then do you accept that? No. I spend 30 seconds enjoying getting there. And then I go, okay, well, that's as far as I could go there. What's next? Where can I pivot to so I can continue to grow as a person? And, I'm not done. I'm almost 70, and I feel like I've got a lot more growing to do. And it's because I haven't met everybody. I haven't talked to everybody. I haven't influenced everybody. So at the end of the day, I write. On my backdrop, you see a book. It's called The Black and White of Baseball and Overcoming Bias in Baseball and Life. When the author came to me and asked me to help him write the book, it was because his grandson was struggling in an environment where being Black meant he was being, treated with racial bias. And I took upon myself to make sure that the voice of the author, George Reister, who is now a very close friend, would be expanded and would be heard by millions of people. And it wasn't about me. It wasn't about anything that would benefit me, but it certainly was about making sure that an entire group of people had a voice.
Yes.
And so by helping him write, did I make a little bit of money? Of course I made a little bit of money. I'm an author, but that's what I get paid to do.
Yeah, we've all got to put a roof over our head, right? Yes.
However, the more important message was that people have contacted me and said, I love the way you put this message together and help George get his message out. And it's like, I was only amplifying George's voice. It was not my voice.
Right.
I appreciate being a contributor to that? Absolutely. There's no purpose we do in life that doesn't attach to self-interest. But at the end of the day, my interest in this stage in my life is to make other people whole, because that makes me whole.
Take an actor, right? They need the stage, they need the lighting, they need the sound, they need the words, and camera, light, action. Then they come alive. Well, what you've done is set the stage, right? You've set the lighting, you've set the sound in which for his voice to be heard. We don't look at a producer or a director and go, you're not necessarily the actor can do it on their own. Some people can do it all on their own, right? They can have the one-man stage, but you're there to set that stage so that he'll be received in the right light.
Yep, and I think that your compilation book, the about the forgotten children, does the same thing. It's very difficult. People don't really want to be reminded of those dark corners in their life, and unfortunately, that's where growth happens.
It is.
We cannot and should not ever ignore the darkness in the corners. And when people say, well, you know what, when I think about the negative, it puts me in this very, very bad mindset. And I'm like, you know what, that's a good thing. If it doesn't bother you, you're not human. It needs to bother you. And so if it bothers you enough, get off your fanny and do something about it. That's the purpose of the book, to get people motivated to understand that we can no longer tolerate this. We're supposed to be the greatest, most influential, most advanced society in the history of this planet, and yet we fail so many millions of people.
We do. And this is why it's called championing change. Because what we're doing is we're championing the changes needs, and we're going back to common sense and basics in many ways. We're trying to switch off that importance. And you mentioned about competition. I think there's two words I don't like in the wrong context: comparison and competition. When you're in competition with someone else, then what are you competing against? The competition is within yourself. Can I be better than yesterday? But you were good yesterday, but can I grow? Yes. The comparison, the moment you start comparing, you're losing yourself, because it's always, well, they do this and they do that. I should do this and I should do that because they get this and they do that. No, it is about who you are, what you can do. Now, you can be inspired by what somebody else does. You can be inspired by the way they do it, and you can integrate that into your own path, because it becomes that illumination that helps you propel forward. But this comparison and competing with other people means you're going to lose yourself, because you're so busy becoming them. They're taken. They don't need anybody else out there like them. We need you, the individual, the authentic individual of who you are, your soul, your essence, your beingness, your contribution, because that's what you're here for. So discover what that is and participate, not only in your own life, but in life in general. That's why it's so important when we discover. And I turned 69 in a week or so. And my life has had quite a number of different journeys, and every single one of them prepared me for becoming a podcaster, which back in 2012, I didn't even know what it was. And I didn't know how to do it, and I just learned how to do it as I went. Don't wait to have everything's got to be perfect before I do it. Everything's got to be, I've got to have this person, I've got to have this, I've got to have that. No, if you've got the passion and you've got the drive, gather as much information and put that one foot in front of the other. And then the other information, the other skills and tools and everything that you need to apply will come as you go. Don't wait for everything to be perfect before you act on it. You make things perfect as you walk, and you have perfect moments, folks. Not everything is always going to be perfect. You have perfect moments. And those moments is what propel you forward to that next moment.
I've spent 13 years as a certified conflict management professional. And at the end of the day, all mediators and all people who deal in the conflict space would much rather prevent conflict than have to solve conflict.
Yes.
But we all have one common saying, and that is that comparison is the root of all conflict. Comparison it enhances greed. Comparison enhances envy. Very rarely, unless you have a very strong locus of control, will comparison stimulate you to good action.
Right.
You need to literally compare today to yesterday, exactly what you said. We are never in competition with other people. We are in competition with ourselves. And if we can't realize that today we must be at least just that one tiny little smidge better than yesterday, then we have failed ourselves. It isn't whether we can beat the next guy, because frankly, it's like the old Westerns are in the old movies. There's always going to be a guy with a faster gun, right?
Yes.
So let's realize that there's no such thing as competition that's not endless. If you're going to compete and you're going to live your life strictly to compete, you're on a never-ending journey to failure, because as you get older and you start to lose some of your skills, inevitably you're not going to be able to compete. I mean, I was a professional athlete for 27 years, and in the last few years of my career, it was a real struggle and took me an inordinate amount of work to even be able to compete with the guys younger than me.
What sport were you in, by the way?
I was a professional bowler. And, when you're in your 50s and you're competing against kids who are 18 to 25, you have a decided disadvantage. They are stronger. They are able to endure more. Your only advantage is experience. And at some point, your physical capability is going to fail enough that even your experience will not allow you to compete.
Right. And that's when you pass the baton on, right? It's like next chapter.
Exactly. So at the end of the day, is competition really worth it? I took more pride in helping some of the younger guys get attuned to the environment and learn their place than I did some of my own accomplishments later in my career.
Right.
Yes, I had the 300 games. Yes, I had the successes. Yes, I really enjoyed the camaraderie with my companions. But at the end of the day, the competition was as much a activity that I pursued for my own interest.
Playground.
I want to be able to compare myself at 50 to 20.
Yeah.
And at 50, I was much more capable than I was at 20, but I couldn't do everything I could do at 20.
Exactly.
So at the end of the day, competition fails me. Competition completely failed me. Now I'm in a 100% collaboration space.
Yes.
I collaborate with parents to make great households. I can collaborate with business owners to make great business cultures. I collaborate with authors to make great books. Is there more value to collaboration than competition? Oh yeah, tons.
1 trillion%. Everybody wins in collaboration, right? It's the orchestra, right? And yes, you do have the soloists, but they rely on everybody else in the orchestra to set the stage, to be that background, to be that wind underneath their wings, so that they do sound good. And if they sound good, then it makes the orchestra sound good. And then everybody gets their turn and a piece, to be that spotlight, but it is about us playing together, right? That's that camaraderie, as you talked about, that collaboration, that shared celebration of achievement, that being there for one another when they get stuck, or, celebrating when it's their moment. That's the beauty of it all. I think that's really when the light and the exuberance of life comes to life, is that sharing. We've become very much solo people. A lot of it because of don't want to play the game anymore. Don't want to play this game of shoulds and you've got to be and you've got to do it this way or you're nothing. We just ride our own wave. And we kind of, just gather along the way, people who are on the same frequency. And that people are tired of playing that game or just want to do what they're doing because they love doing it, because they are it. Right? I say you want peace, be the peace. You want joy, be the joy. You want love, be the love. It's about being. And when we are being, we're going to gather other people on that same frequency, that same vibration. And we become even more together for our own individualism. And I think that's where it's about just recognizing you're on a different chapter in your book of life and that it's okay to be in a different chapter. I have physical ailments that don't allow me to do a lot of things, but I look to what I can do. And that's where I put my energy, where I can do. And for long as I can do, I will do. Whatever chapter I'm on.
Absolutely. As an author, I help people design their books. Mm-hmm. And then I like you, I do say that people's lives are just like a book and they need to read and live every chapter of their book. But the one thing they should never do is they should never be the author of their final chapter. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's to be written by people after you're gone. So what is the legacy you're going to leave? What is the message you're going to leave to the people? Sure, we can look back and we can see some of the most fantastic people in history. And most of them were not millionaires. Most of them were not. Most of them were people who impacted the most numbers of people.
Yes.
And unfortunately, some of them, like Stalin or Hitler or, people like that, they negatively impacted millions of people. And yet their name will live in history forever.
As a warning.
Yeah, as a warning. So what we have to do is we have to understand that we need to live our life so that we encourage somebody to write that final chapter.
Yes.
And do we want that final chapter to be a negative chapter or a positive chapter?
Right.
And so if you start to make the choices in your life, knowing that you're going to leave that to someone else, don't you think that you're going to have a pretty positive chapter because you made those choices?
Yes.
If you can't look at your choices and realize that that's what you're getting, maybe you're making some suboptimal choices. Maybe you need to change some of your choices. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about your book, The Forgotten Children, because I think that it's extremely important. And I think your voice sometimes needs to be heard as much as the author's. I love contributing to the book. My chapter was about talking about the different types of families in the modern society. And there are a lot of different families. But I think at the end of the day, people have lost the ability to find family. They've lost the ability to find the word neighbor. Mm-hmm. I challenge people. Do you know your neighbors' children's names?
Yes.
Have you ever had your neighbors' children in your backyard or in your home? Do you have a block party once or twice a year just so that neighbors can get to know neighbors? These are activities that were normal in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And all of a sudden, now it's like, oh, wow.
We're fearful of each other. You're looking at me sideways. Yeah, we've become so paranoid. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Exactly. I want to know every name of every child on my street. When I was growing up, if I felt threatened by someone, whether it was another kid or an adult, I could stop in front of any house in my neighborhood, go up to the door, knock on it and say, Mrs. Williams, could I please stay here until I can call and let me call my parents to come get me because I'm afraid this person is following me. And if you tried to do that today, as is evidenced by a lot of the news stories, the guy in the house might shoot you. So it's like, where have we gone wrong as a society that we no longer embrace other people's children and take responsibility for the village taking care of the village?
We've become fear mongers. People are so afraid and they don't know what they're afraid of. And they live in this state of hysteria all the time, which a great deal of the media dishes out in abundance. And we consume it. And half the time, I say they take a pimple and make it into a volcanic eruption. And people are busy responding to that volcanic eruption and realize it's just a pimple, folks. Right? And they sensationalize everything. And they do that because they can control people who are in fear. When they're in fear, they can manipulate them. People cannot think rationally when they're in fear. They can't think logically. They can't see clarity. Everything about them is so tensed up and they're so afraid and they don't know what they're afraid of that they can't have any clear thought whatsoever. And if you keep people in that perpetual state, they're going to look at everybody as the enemy.
Yep. I have a way of characterizing that. As an athlete, you're going to win or lose when you participate. And rightfully so, because what is competition? When you end up with a tie, it's kind of like, So at the end of the day, what I teach people is take it the worst thing that could happen to you today and take the best thing that could happen to you today and celebrate it or feel bad about it for less than 30 seconds. And then start saying what's next.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, whatever has happened is already in the past, even if it happened 30 seconds ago.
Yeah.
So you need to embrace the fact that it's in the past. And unless you just won the lottery and it's not going to impact your life in a week, it will not matter whether you won or lost. It will not matter if something negative happened to you. It will simply be a story you can tell. And can you make it a really, really good story? That's the most important thing.
Right. And the thing is, yes, if something's happened to you, take that moment to digest it. Take that moment to kind of deep breath, release it. All of our emotions they're an indication of something happening to us in that moment. Yes, spend that emotion. Please spend that emotion, but don't become emotional over the emotion. That's where we get stuck. We become emotional. I'm angry. Well, I'm angry that I'm angry. And that makes me even more angry. Now what happens? You've forgotten what you were angry about. You're just angry. Right? And it's like this is becoming emotional over the emotion. Let us look at why you're emotional and go, all right, you know what? That angered you. Take a deep breath, release it, and say, that doesn't have power over me anymore.
I work with people in a cross-cultural space, and I was asked to work with people who were from Pakistan and India. And these two people were working in the same office at Intel here locally. And they were having a difficult time in the office because they wouldn't communicate with each other. And so I was called in to try to see if I couldn't resolve the issue. So what I did was I took each one of them and turned to lunch, and I talked to them about their background, their family life, what their aspirations were, what their goals were. And then I got them together and I said, look, all I want you to do is share one personal thing with each other. And I want you to understand that neither one of you, when we had our discussions, could even tell me what the conflict was about between yourselves, because it's anchored somewhere thousands of years in the past, because your peoples hated each other back then over some territorial dispute or something that happened. And you're living their anger, not your reality. And 3 months later, I went to do a reassessment because I wanted to know how well I did. And the two were going out to play golf on Sundays together. They were best friends. They were going to each other's homes. And yet they were from two completely opposed countercultures. Human beings, if you isolate it down to the one-on-one dyad, can always find peace.
Yes.
There's no excuse.
No, it's a choice.
When you get to the other end of the continuum, when we start, you get in this situation called group dynamics where you're in front of 50 of your peers, and if you don't act just like they do, then all of a sudden you're becoming an outcast. So you will take on the mantle of being part of the group as opposed to being an individual. And do you make some really stupid decisions when you do that? Absolutely. So I try to get people to understand, treat the group as a dyad. If you break it down to the individual, if you were going to be across from that person right there, would you be able to find peace? And the answer is inevitably absolutely yes. Then that should be what defines society, not anything else.
It's not the exterior, it's the interior. When you find the heart connection. And
Yep.
you know, when you look at the commonalities that we have, the you have that struggle, I have that struggle. You love to do that, I love to do that. When we look at those and we go, there's more in common than there is apart. Why are we choosing to hate? Because it is a choice. Even abstaining from a choice is a choice, right? And when we choose, I don't care what somebody dictates that I should hate you because of the color of your skin or your religion or your politics or your this or that. I will choose to like you because I have made that choice, not somebody else imposing it upon me.
Yeah, Casals wrote a very good quote, and the quote was that in all of the history of humanity, there has never been, nor will there ever be, another person just like you.
Right.
However, when you think about that quote and then you juxtapose it with the reality of humanity, as a species, we are all 94 to 96% identical.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the Human Genome Project works. That's why we know that when you open up someone's skin, their veins and their nerves and everything else are right where they're supposed to be.
Yep. All the same color.
Yeah, we're all, when we're 96% the same, doesn't that mean that every choice we make and every conflict we encounter is buried in that 4%?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, when you can really look at the math of that,
yeah,
that means we really, really need to understand why we need to be more similar than different. And I think that's how I focus on my writing. And that's why it makes me sad when I think about the kids that are discarded by their families or by society, or just because they happen to grow up in the wrong part of town, they are automatically negated from certain realities.
Exactly.
And, I went to a school and I worked with a student. A teacher told me, I have a really difficult time with this student. He doesn't behave. He doesn't follow the rules. And I said, just let me talk to him for 5 minutes. And I talked to him and I asked him exactly, what he wanted to get out of school and why he behaved the way he did. And he had never had an actual adult authority figure ask him that question.
Exactly.
No one cared enough to ask him that question.
No, we don't. We impose. We don't listen.
When I gave him a voice, I actually gave him a voice. And then I said, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'm going to give you a couple of hints. And I explained to him how to get the right type of attention as opposed to the wrong type of attention. And a year later, when I checked back with the school, he had moved from being a DF student to being an AB student. And 3 years later, he graduated from high school with honors.
He just had to be heard.
You only have to give people their being.
Yes.
If
Stop looking at them as a statistic or as a number. Yeah. Treat them as that human being, that beautiful individual they are.
Now, the household he lived in, he was a foster child in a house that didn't even have a parent figure because people who fostered him were the age of his grandparents. Mm. And so he felt disconnected and he felt as if he was simply occupying space in society. And even the teacher, although the teacher was a hard-working teacher and a very loving teacher, had 30 other students in the class and couldn't give him that individual time. And so his voice wasn't being heard. Sometimes we need a mentor space, which my nonprofit does. We mentor disadvantaged youth, and we put them in a one-on-one situation, and we give them life skills and leadership skills and teach them how to be their own leader.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, you must lead yourself before you can lead others.
Yep.
And that is the message that my mentees or mentors give to my mentees. And we have about a 78% success rate. And I'm not proud of that. It's just a number. Mm-hmm. If I got to 100%, now that I'd be proud of. But I know that's not reality. But at the end of the day, that 78% means I have to work harder. I have to try harder.
Well, it also means that 22%, maybe the results aren't there right now, but the seeding is, and it will come out later.
Exactly.
Right. So, everybody's going to develop at their own time, and that some people, are just bucking the moment, but the seeding is there. And when it makes sense to them, where suddenly it comes up and you go, okay, yeah, no, I can apply it here. That's when things start to change. And we also have to understand there are some people that, for whatever reason, will never change. And they're just people that's their choice. They don't want to grow. They don't want to find solutions. They just want to stay in anger and bitterment. And we can't do anything for them other than we're here when you're ready.
Well, when a student is ready, the teacher will always appear.
Exactly. And they may never be ready because there are some people that's their choice in life. The finger pointing, it's your fault, but there's three pointing back. Well, where's your accountability? Where's your responsibility? What are you going to do about it? But they don't want to acknowledge those three fingers. They just want to point and make it
Yep.
everybody else because it does require some work to actually accept your own responsibility for where you are, what you can do about it, how you can empower yourself, that whole reprogramming, that whole journey taking. It does require some work, and it doesn't have to be hard. If you immerse yourself into it, it's going to be as difficult as you choose it to be. But if
Yeah.
you're not willing to invest in yourself and participate in your own life, then you're not going to evolve and grow into the person that you would like to be. You're going to stay in embitterment, and we can't help you if you choose to stay there. It has to
Yeah.
be free will.
I make sure that my first pillar is all about the self.
Mm.
I used to label it my life, my voice, my passion, my choice. And at the end of the day, if you really can't create a huge positive self-image, you're not ready to move on to the other pillars.
Exactly.
Do you need a voice? Sometimes you need to be the voice in your own head.
Yes.
And that's part of that first pillar. It's not part of the voice pillar, because the voice pillar is how you project yourself to the world. And a lot of people, that's where the disconnect is.
Mm-hmm.
They get so wrapped up in competition and being so self-important that they fail to realize that they need also to be important to other people.
Exactly.
The only way you can do that is to actually grow and develop as a human being.
We see a lot more narcissism today than we used to. Maybe we've just become more aware of it. Maybe because we've had so many particular leaders that are, epitome of the highest narcissism you could think of. And that comes from, children that haven't been taught empathy or compassion or sharing or the ability to love others. They're still very much in that need of me, myself at everybody else's expense. And they've, never learned that. And narcissism cannot be rectified unless the person knows they are narcissistic and wants to do something about it. And most of the time, narcissism it's not their fault, it's everybody else's. So they're not going to do anything about it. And so, again, is that we can help the people that want to be helped. We can help the people that want to, that say, no, there has to be something more. I have to be worth more. I have to be here for a reason. And we can help those people. But I've learned from my own career in life of trying to help people that just want you to fix them, but don't want to take any accountability of their own life is a dead end street. And we have to be willing to participate in our own growth, because it's somebody can give you the tools and the skills and show you how to get there. You've got to apply it.
When I'm working with someone that wants me to be their coach, I spend about 30 minutes with them. And if I determine that they're not ready to embrace the self, I invite them to go to other coaches.
Yes, exactly.
You
Because you can't help them, if they're unwilling to help themselves, but also that means you're taking time away from somebody else that is ready, right? So
I would rather work with the person who is coming to me and saying, I know I'm flawed, and I know I'm just this close, but I'm flawed, and I can't see the flaw myself, and I need help discovering it. And what I do is I tell them, look, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you discover yourself. Right. And once I help them discover themselves, I give them the template for moving on. And I'm not in it to be a coach for somebody for years and years and years. No. I want to show people that they do have what it takes inside. Yes. Everybody does. But what you have to do is sometimes you have to get them around a corner or over a roadblock. And, there's no shame in that.
No. And also giving them the right tools that they can apply on their other roadblocks that they're going to come in life, right? Yeah. Exactly. The ability to navigate themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. I always had a coach. 27 years as an athlete, I always had a coach. I never went a day without a coach. Because if you try to coach yourself, you're simply a fool. You can't possibly see yourself in the mirror. And you may be doing something completely, you've slid slightly away from your highest capabilities. And if a coach says, you know what, instead of doing this, you're kind of drifted over here, we need to get you back on path. You never would have saw that until you were so far off path that you ran into a wall.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, people don't realize there's no shame in having a life coach. There's no
Yeah.
shame in having someone help you get over the rough edges.
Yeah.
First of all, how much time do people lose by struggling and not admitting that they need help?
Yes.
That, to me, if you quantify that, if someone makes 100 grand a year and they remain stuck for 6 months, did they just throw away a huge amount of potential? And to me, it's like my fees and what I need to do to help you, whether it's writing a book, getting around a corner, solving a competency, learning how to speak in public. I don't care what it is as a coach. If I can help you solve the problem, to me, it's about building you
Yeah.
and you treating me as if I was valuable in the moment, but I don't want to be in your suitcase for the next 6 years.
Except for actually the skills and the wisdom in the suitcase, not
Oh,
you personally, right?
I always give nuggets so that they can move
Yes.
forward, I always invite them to call me and celebrate their successes. And if they do run into another problem, then we'll have another intake and another conversation.
Right. And we see these shows are about listen, learn, and apply. Because there's always going to be something that we hear in a show that we relate to or that wakes us up or is a piece of information we didn't have. So that's what you've learned from it. How do you apply it to your life in whatever way? And this is why I do what I do, is to bring people, the solutioners, as I call them, the people that have got the answers that you need in this moment, the people that are going to be there to help you put in your backpack the right wisdom, the right knowledge, the right skills, the right tools that are there for you to help you walk your path in life with the right information. And that's the reason I do what I do, why I bring these shows to it. But we've got to be willing to apply. And, you listen and you go, I really relate to that person. I feel this person really would hear me and could help me. And that's where you take the action, right? So this is the thing, we've got to take the action, and that's what's really important. And yes, and thank you for being a part of the book, because I've been wanting to do this book for a few years. And when I reached out to a few of my children's, that I'd interviewed, they'd retired or gone on. And it was like, okay, then obviously I need to look for new people, and you were recommended. And certainly your piece, I don't have actually, on the parenting side, which is wonderful because we've got lots of different diverse chapters coming in. And I don't want the chapters to be written where everything is kind of in the same tone. I wanted that orchestra. I wanted it to be the tune-up. And the crescendo is once you finish the book and all of it, then you can really hear the piece. I wanted to be an aware book, aware of what, that maybe you haven't been observant, aware that it's not your fault. You've been following a template that's not working. It's time for you to change that template and listen to your inner self and look to other people to guide you in a way that really is about your beingness and not the doingness. There's a lot that we can do. And if we're not aware of it, then we don't know we need to do it. And so this is what my office is sharing, the issues, but what we can do about it, right? There's no point in just giving the problem. We've also got to do what we can do about it. That's the important thing. But being aware of what's out there. No blame, no shame, not shutting people down because they're different or they can't cope. But how do we step into compassion? How do we step into empathy? How do we step into collaboration and realize we are the village?
You know, I have one final piece I really want to throw out there. A lot of people always ask me, what's the most important thing in the room? When you have two people in there in conflict, the most important thing is the third party in the room, which is the relationship.
Mm.
You have to value the relationship more than you value yourself. If you can't value the relationship, then why are you even in the room having the conflict? Because with no relationship, there would be no conflict.
Exactly.
And when you're in a group and you're in a setting and you see people who are in conflict, the most important person is the third party bystander who could temper the tone, who could step in and say, hey, let's take it down a notch and let's come over here and let's sit down and let's have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It's always about that third party. It's always about envisioning it. And if you're the only person in the room with another person, yourself, and it's your alter ego, guess what? You still need to have a positive relationship with yourself. So even that becomes a third party in the room.
Yeah.
People don't, that's called abstract thinking. And we have to be willing to accept that no two people will do it the same. No two people live the same. We're all unique. So why would you judge somebody just because they're different? There's no better or worse.
No, we
Elon
can
Musk,
agree to disagree,
yeah,
but that doesn't
Elon
mean
Musk
you have to
may
go
be the
down the
richest
hate
man in the
rhetoric.
world.
Right.
But yeah, I don't care. Do I need money to live? Yeah, we all need money to live. Do I
Yes.
need people? I need people in my life who care about me. I need people in life who believe in me, and I need people in life to support what I do. Those are the three things I need more than anything in the world. None of that equates to money in my life.
Right.
If it does equate to money, that's a byproduct, and I can accept that. So, if someone comes to me to ask me to help them write a book, I'm going to help them write the book. If someone comes to me for coaching, I'm going to coach them. Does that mean that I'm trying to take on a bigger load than I should? No, I don't believe so, because I get to choose who I help.
Yes.
So,
yes.
At the end of the day, if you believe in what I do and you want to talk to me, reach out. I'm willing to have a conversation, and then we'll see if I fit.
That's the point. Are you on the same vibe? Are you on the same frequency? Because if you are, then now actually you can create, right? But it's like, what does a person want to have most in life is to be heard. Not only be heard, but be understood for what we're saying. And when you have somebody else that can help translate that or highlight that or expand that even within your own dialogue, then that means that whatever we're hearing and whatever we're partaking is something that's important, that will count, because we want to know what we're contributing counts, right? We just want to know it counts. So we started the show off by it being, about author's kiss, which of course with so many books that you've done, and most certainly you've done that, but it really should have been about our Gift to Children series, because that's what we really went with today. So it can be both. I really do firmly believe that when we invest in the families and we invest in the children and we invest in their beingness, we're investing in a future society that is going to function so much more with clarity and optimization and productivity and possibilities. But it's this band-aid effect that seems to be going on out there, and this fix it later. And, I'm into what we call the alternative medicine. I want to get to the root cause of something and deal with it there, and not, the byproduct of something that's been left to fester. So I think it's really, really important that we really do listen. So if you are a parent or a parent to be, or you are a grandparent, or you're an uncle or your aunt, this is the show for you to listen to. If you are very much interested in the writings that he does, and you've got a story that you want to be told, that you need somebody to write it for you because it's just not quite your forte, or you need that person that hears you, bring out your voice, but he's here for you. And of course, if you want to come and support our Forgotten Children book series, what we are doing is we're raising money to actually pay for the production of the book and to put it out there. But the money from the book goes into the authors, shared amongst the authors, organizations or charities that they support. So we want this to be a book that keeps on giving. It gives you the information, it gives you the wisdom, it gives you the invitation. At the same time, it supports the supporters that are already supporting children's and families. And what is the platform that you're wanting to support?
Well, I'm the COO of Brokenness to Healing Foundation, and like I say, we mentor disadvantaged youth. It's a passion project. I've been the COO for 5 years now, and I've never taken a salary. I give them around 500 hours a year, and I train mentors, and I make sure that I help the organization stay on target with their mission statement. And I make school visits, and I help teachers, and I do different things. And that's the number one. And then the number two is the After the Limelight Foundation, which is a foundation we're just now creating that will focus on mental health awareness and suicide prevention. It's a horrific pandemic. But the number one pandemic across the entire world is mental health and suicide.
Yes.
It has always been there. It has always been swept under the rug. It needs its time in the sun. It needs to be worked on. It needs to be understood. And so those are my two nonprofits. I have two series of books. The first series I'm completing, The Slippery Slope. It's all about a social reset. I
Yes.
don't tell people how to behave. I just give them all of the possibilities and let them make their own choices.
Yeah.
The second series is entirely 12 books about relationships. It's about the actual relationship, and then it's the first book defines relationship in all forms, and then the other 11 books in the series following it will actually focus on one specific type of relationship in each book to really anchor down, because at the end of the day, humans are social species.
Yes.
We have to remain a social species. And if we can fix relationships, we can fix the entire world.
Yes. And first and foremost is the relationship with yourself.
Absolutely. And
We
that's book
fix
two,
that, and then that's what we bring out and share with everything else, right? We've got to
exactly.
realize if we want abundance in life, we need to be the abundance. We want love, we want peace, we want clarity, we've got to be it. We are it. It's not something you could go and acquire. It is something that you create from being you. So the more that we immerse in ourselves into our own beautiful beingness, there's a lovely word that I was given, flawsome. There isn't anybody out there that doesn't have a flaw of some kind, a broken bowl in many pieces. But as the Japanese or the Chinese put it, back together with gold, I'm saying put yourself back together with love. When you put yourself back together, all those pieces together with self-love, that bowl becomes unbreakable and is able to contain a great deal because it's with love. And don't look at all the mistakes you've made. They're life lessons. Don't look at all the things that you wish you'd done and you haven't done. There's still opportunities, right? Start treating yourself with some compassion, some self-love, some understanding of who you are, not what everybody expected of you. And you will become a better human being by being who you are. And then you'll be able to do better out there in society. And that ripple effect starts having a positive effect on humanity as a whole. And this is where we need to be, folks. We are the solution with the problem, but we are also the solution, one person at a time.
Well, I have really enjoyed our time, Sarah. I think that, at the end of the day, what you do is amazing. And, people could, just take a dose of humility from what you do. You know, we're all flawed, and at the end of the day, we have to get past the flaw. We have to
Yeah,
accept it, that it's there, and just like put it in our hip pocket and go, okay, I'm bringing you with me, flaw. But guess what? We're gonna make beautiful music together.
exactly. Exactly. And we look at a diamond and it actually is more valuable when it has a flaw in it. Right? That flaw that we have in ourselves is a lesson, is, a crack that we put back together. It becomes our strength. And if we could actually understand we're so much more courageous, we're so much more stronger, we have so many more abilities, we have so much more creativity and possibility inside of us, if only we would ignite it and take that path. How
Absolutely.
do people get hold of you, my love?
Well, they can get a hold of me on my website, which is buddypscapro.org, or they can contact me through LinkedIn. I use my real name on all social media, so I'm actually on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. And I believe that people need to be able to reach people. I don't believe that using a pseudonym is a healthy way to approach life. And so, I literally embedded my name. If you look at my blue logo on my screen, that is my email address, buddypscapro@gmail.com. It's part of my logo. I tell
Yeah.
everybody in the world how to get a hold of me. And I invite people to get a hold of me, and I get easily 1,000 emails a day.
Mm.
And I filter through them. I have a VA who helps me filter through them. But at the end of the day, every relevant email I get gets answered, and I never turn down at least a conversation with anybody. And if I'm not the right person, I tell you
Yeah.
I'm not the right person, but I give you at least 2 or 3 options of people to go to, because at the end of the day, what good am I if I'm not a free resource to get
Yeah.
you where you need to go?
Exactly. Exactly. Could you just spell your name for people who are listening, please, love?
Yeah, it's first name is Buddy, Buddy, and the last name is Thornton, a very heavy Thornton.
So we can find that all across social media. Please reach out. Please look at his social media and see what's posted up there. Look at his books. There's always a place to start. Maybe, you've got that book in you and you just don't know how to write it. Having just written mine, no, it's not that easy. So having somebody that hears you, that gets you, that can help get your word out, get your essence out, is sometimes what you need, because don't put it off. Don't put your story off just because you don't know how to write it. There's always somebody there that can help you, and Buddy's there to help. So again, thank you for joining us on our Forgotten Children series. People can find out and support that on the orchardofwisdom.org// Our Forgotten Children book. I invite you to come and see who our other wonderful authors are, but also how you can financially support this book into production. It's important this book gets out, not only for the fundraising that it does for the organizations, but also for the messages that it shares. So please, I do ask you to support us. So thank you so much, Buddy. And until next time, folks, remember, the relationship with self is where it starts. Be the awesome, flawsome person that you are. You will be a better person. You will be a better parent, and you would set your children free by allowing them to be what they are meant to be. Until next time, folks, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Just go to the podcast tag at the top there and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.